Good afternoon, everyone. It is Wednesday, January 25th. Forgot the date for a moment. And it is 3 o'clock p.m. or shortly thereafter, which means it is time for Women in Business. Today, we are going to talk about how to stop sabotaging sales. And that's something that was brought to me or suggested to me by something that happened to me a couple days ago, as I said in the little description for this show today. So, people hit me up all the time to become friends on one of the social media channels to connect in some way. And I usually do a little research before I say yes or no, because I know some of them are going to hit me up with sales pitches, which probably will not be applicable to me and mostly will be annoying. So I usually do a little bit of research. And if somebody's on the cusp of should I friend them or not, I'll see um, is who else is friends with them, what's on their profile, whatever it is, and then I make the decision. So in this case, the person was sort of borderline, but I was like, okay, I'll give them a shot. So I friended them, and the first thing I got was a nice message that said, "Thank you for accepting my request." And I thought, oh, okay, that's the person knows some etiquette. They understand how social media is supposed to work. Great. And then the next thing I got was a really, really lame sales message. And that immediately crushed any kind of interest I had in that person at all, basically. And it really started me thinking, because here's the thing. In that person's mind, they probably thought that they were doing something good, that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing, which is, hey, here's a new person. Let's hit them up and see if we can make a sale. But what actually happened was, number one, they annoyed me. Number two, they were so far off target with their pitch that there was no way in any universe that they were going to actually sell me something. And they wasted their time, and honestly, they wasted my time too. And the more I started thinking about this, the more I thought, I see this a lot. I see this a whole lot. And if this person's doing it, there are a lot of people I'm seeing it in other places, then there are a lot of other people, I'm sure, who are doing this as well. And there's a whole lot of people out there who are wasting their time and who are stopping themselves from getting sales that could actually be beneficial because they are pursuing the wrong people in the wrong way. And that just made me kind of think, well, that's sad. We shouldn't really that shouldn't really be happening. And maybe it's time to do a show and talk about this a little bit. So I am going to talk about how people sabotage sales in general. I'm also going to focus on some ways that women in particular can sabotage sales, because this show is called Women in Business. And really what I want to do is just talk about this issue, because I think it's one of those things that a lot of people assume they know how to do it, how to pursue sales, how to get clients, how to do that stuff. But the ways they're pursuing that goal are really not getting them what they want. And those are the people that are sitting there saying, there aren't any clients out there. I don't know why my business isn't doing better, all this sort of stuff. So today we're going to cover some of those things to try to maybe help some people who might be pursuing some areas that aren't necessarily profitable or helpful for them. And the first thing I want to talk about, and this is, if there is one thing that people take away from this show, it's this: do your research, people. And I'm not saying you have to spend hours. I'm saying if you're going to approach someone and try to sell them something, first of all, know that they're a viable prospect. which means someone who has money, who will want, who will want and can use what you have to sell, and is someone that is going to be open and receptive to what you're offering. And that doesn't take a lot of time to do. The person who pitched me happened to pitch me for digitizing. Now, if you did 5 seconds of research on me, and he approached me on Facebook in Facebook Messenger. So he was on Facebook. I am all over Facebook. If you just look at my profile, you will see, number one, I work for a digitizer. So it isn't likely I'm going to, or I work with a digitizer, I should say. So it's not likely that I'm going to want digitizing from someone else. If you did even a cursory search of my name, you would find that I have said like 5 million times that I don't embroider. So I don't have any need for digitizing because I don't have any need for embroidery designs, in the sense of I'm not going to use them to make something. And that's pretty easy to find. We're not talking hours of research here. We're talking maybe 15 minutes. But it was a random pitch. I mean, it was a random, poorly constructed pitch. So let's not even get started on that. But that's the other half of it too. If you're going to send someone a pitch, make sure it's grammatical, make sure it's enticing, make sure it's inviting, make sure it's not just clearly something that you threw at the wall in hopes that it will stick. And that's where research comes in. Who is the business you're pitching? Who are the people you're talking to? Who is going to be interested in this? Are they going to be interested in this? Like I said, if the person who pitched me had done even cursory research, I mean, like 5 minutes, looked at my profile at least, they would have seen that I work with a digitizer. So if I need digitizing, I'm probably going to go to the digitizer with whom I work. That ain't rocket science, people. That's just logical. But I've outed him as a male now, but this person didn't even do that much research. And here's what is really sad about this is pitching someone is not the easiest thing in the world to do. Hitting someone up for business and letting them know that you think your skills are worthy of their attention and time is kind of a hard thing to do sometimes. And if you don't do research, you're wasting all that effort on someone who may have zero interest in what you have to offer, who may not even be the right person for what you're offering. And that's the problem that Lindsay makes me laugh. This digitizer dude had better back off. Oh, Lindsay, that made me laugh. I love that. But yeah, he better back off, because come on. And it makes me sad and it makes me angry. It makes me angry, number one, because I see a lot of people do this and it's completely lazy. It's completely lazy and most likely useless in terms of actually doing what you want it to do. And pitching in a specific, knowledgeable way is not that much harder to do. We're not talking 50 years of research here. We're not talking spending an entire day doing an in-depth dive on somebody's life. We're talking spending 15 minutes on social media, maybe throwing caution to the winds and Googling their name or their company name and seeing what they do and who they work with and what they need, and then tailoring a pitch to them. It is not hard to do. And the benefit of spending the time is, number one, you'll be pitching people you know are viable customers. And number two, the likelihood of the pitch actually resulting in something is much greater. But people waste time on half-assed pitches, excuse my language, but that's what they are, that aren't going to get anything from anyone. And it's so disheartening to see, because I know these people are sitting somewhere going, why am I not getting business? Why is nobody responding to my pitches? Why are people unfriending me once I pitched, which I did not do. And normally, honestly, I do. Normally, if somebody pitches me poorly and that's clearly the only reason that they wanted to connect with me, then I don't have time for them and they're gone. In this case, I didn't do that mostly because that person gave me an idea for the show. So I was like, you get a little grace because you gave me an idea for something to talk about this week. And I think it's an important thing to talk about. So the first point, when you're trying to get better at sales, do your research. Doesn't have to be in depth, doesn't have to take that long, but at least do a cursory look at the person that you want to pitch and make sure they're a viable customer. Try to learn something about them so your pitch can be specific to them. Here's how we can help you, as opposed to here's this random thing that I do that I'm going to throw at you in hopes that it will stick and you'll want it. That's not effective. It doesn't work. It's wasting your time. It's wasting the person you're pitching's time. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Next thing. This is another one. Listen. If you do, by some chance, get in front of someone and you have the ability to pitch them your services and what you can do, what a lot of people do is go into overdrive, or they get obsessed with elevator pitches or stories or whatever sales technique thing they've read. And they're so obsessed with this planned thing that they've decided to say that they don't listen to the person they're trying to pitch. And what happens then is often you talk yourself out of the sale because you are so focused on getting your words out and getting your points made that you're not asking questions and you're not listening to what the person actually needs. And here's where this causes problems, because if you're not listening, you're not hearing the cues that could actually tell you, okay, this is something I can do for this person that'll solve a problem they have. And it's like sales, not even 101. It's like sales 0.0, that solving problems is the way to make sales. This is not rocket science. This is just basic. If you want to make sales, sell somebody's problem or solve somebody's problem. You could sell somebody's problem too, but that's a little different thing. Solve someone's problem. Figure out what their problem is and fix it. Offer them something that will help them deal with it. And to do that, you have to listen. Listening is a lost art in a lot of ways. Listening and responding to what you hear instead of being focused on saying your own spiel is a lost art in a lot of ways. And I think, honestly, the people who are the best salespeople are the people who know how to listen, are the people who can pause and be comfortable with being quiet and who have, I don't want to say rehearsed because that's not the right word, who have things in mind that they can say, but are willing to be flexible and are also willing to just shut up and let somebody else talk. I worked with a salesman some years ago, and he was a great salesperson. He did really, really well. And one of the things he was a very gregarious, if there was ever like a salesperson prototype, it was this guy. But he also knew when to be quiet. And he was a big personality. He could fill a room all by himself, but he knew when to be quiet and listen. And he got to know the people that were his clients. And he knew them down to almost, I wouldn't say a cellular level, but he knew them well. And he knew what they needed, and he knew what their worries were, and he knew what their businesses were doing. And he could offer the things that they were looking for. That came from listening. It didn't come from talking. It came from listening, and it came from research. It's the only way to do it. And Listening is not hard. It's just keeping your mouth shut and your ears open. That's all it is. But if you listen, you will find ways to make the sale that you may never even have thought of. Because one of the funny things about people is they will tell you stuff they don't even realize they're telling you. And also, if you listen for a given value of listen on social media, people are putting out their problems, their what makes them angry, their fears, all that stuff every day. That's why research is so important, because you can find the pain points for your clients without even talking to them a lot of the time, just by going to their pages or their groups or wherever they are and listening to what's being said, in the sense of, in this case, reading, but you know what I mean. So that's the second thing I want to say. Just listen. Speak about half as much as you have been most of the time, because honestly, a lot of times another reason we talk so much is because we're nervous about asking for a sale. So we want to get all the points as to why this person should want to be with us or want to buy from us or want what we have to offer or want to pay our fee or whatever it is. So we just, it's verbal diarrhea basically, because we're trying to get everything out there because we feel nervous and uncomfortable, and asking people for money, even if you're giving them something for it, is hard. And that's where you need to just, in the back of your head, go, okay, I need to shut up now and listen to what this person is saying. Because if I listen to them, I'm going to hear the cues that will tell me how to sell to them. Like I said, not rocket science. But being quiet is really, really hard for some people. Another way that we sabotage sales, or sabotage getting the price we want, that might be the more accurate. But if you sell something for less than what you really should get for it, then you are sabotaging your sales. So it still applies. But that's fear of conflict. And I will put my hand up to this one. I don't like conflict. I grew up with a ton of conflict. And I became very, very conflict avoidant, to the point that I would basically let people almost walk all over me if I could not have conflict, which is not a good way to be. There are times when you have to stand firm on what you think is the right thing to do. And one of those times is when you are negotiating a sale with someone and they're coming at you hard because they don't like your terms or they don't like your price or whatever it is. And sometimes, and this isn't exclusively a female thing, but it does happen with women. I know, because I've talked to some that have this problem. And I, like I said, I'll put my hand up to being one of them on occasion. Not so much anymore, but I was. You have to just take your stand and say, this is the price. These are the terms. If this doesn't work for you, then, you need to find someone else to do business with, because I'm not the person. And that, again, is a hard thing to do. And one of the things that makes this a little bit easier, and this is something that I've talked about in other lectures and things that I've given, is, again, run your numbers. Know what you need to make. Know what's the bare minimum you can make and still at least eke out a little bit of profit. And that means running your numbers ahead of time so that you're not casting around for an answer when somebody says, well, will you take this? And if you have your what I call the rock bottom price, then you know that whatever this person is offering you is either that price or something near it, or is below that, and no, you can't take it, because then you will make no profit whatsoever and you will have done work for basically free. There's no point to that. That is not what you're in business for. You're not in business to work for free. Yes, there are times when working for free might make sense. You have to decide those. That's a whole different talk. But you need to know your numbers, because if you know your numbers, then you know where you can negotiate and where you can't. You know where your floor is in terms of what price you won't go below. And it makes, when someone is pushing at you to try to lower your price or change your terms, it makes things easier because you know what your parameters are. So you don't have to worry about, did I lose a sale because I didn't do this? Or did I lose a sale because I should have bent more and I didn't? And conflict is part of life. I hate to say this. It makes me a little sad sometimes that that is true, but it is. Everybody's going to run into conflict at some point. So you need to get good at dealing with it. And maybe it's low stakes conflict at first. Maybe it's sending your dinner back at a restaurant because it's cold or you didn't get what you wanted or whatever it is. It's something that's relatively low stakes. And then you start ramping it up. But keep in mind that one of the reasons that you need to be willing to deal with conflict is that you are running a business. You are generating a lifestyle for yourself and your family and your employees if you have them. And there isn't anybody else who's going to do that for you. As much as we like to think that all our customers are going to be benevolent and want to pay us all this money, they're not. What makes them want to pay us the money is that the services we offer are valued by them and they can't get them anywhere else, or our abilities and skills are so highly touted that they want to work with us, or working with us is such a smooth and easy experience, they want to do that. Those are the reasons that people bite on your pitch. And those are also the reasons that but you have to remember that the people that you're pitching are business owners too. And they have a bottom line and they have to maximize the value they're getting for their money and all that sort of thing. And so that's where the pushback comes from. Most of the time, they're not pushing back because they're jerks. I mean, sometimes they are. There's a certain subspecies of customer who will push back no matter what, just because they're jerks. And those are probably people you don't want to deal with. And if you don't have to, you shouldn't. But most customers are just, they have their requirements for what constitutes a good sale. They have their requirements for what is a good deal on their end. And that's all they're doing. So they're not doing it because they're jerks. They're not doing it to be mean. They're not doing it to make you feel uncomfortable. They're just trying to get a good deal for their company so they can keep doing what they do. So when you look at conflicts that way, when you look at someone pushing back at you that way, it becomes a lot less scary because it's not personal. It's just they're doing what you're doing. They're trying to get the best deal they can and make the most and maximize the use of their money and skills as best they can. And that's not being a jerk. That's just being a good business owner. So if you look at it that way, it kind of puts things in a different light, and maybe it makes having these conversations a little easier. I don't know. I think it does for me. So hopefully maybe thinking of it like that for some of the rest of you will do that as well. Next thing, and I'm sorry, I was trying to hold off on the water, but it's just not going to work. Okay. Next thing, stop procrastinating. I have seen people build lists of prospective customers that go on for hundreds of people, and they research everyone meticulously, and they know everything about them, and they have, elaborate spreadsheets about all this stuff. What they don't do is ever talk to the person. What they don't do is ever pitch the person. What they don't do is even approach the person. You cannot sell the people that you do not pitch. That seems like it's a no-brainer, but maybe not for some people. I don't know. And I get it because sales is uncomfortable. And especially if you're new or you're not particularly confident or you're more introverted and talking to people you don't know is very uncomfortable, it's easy to get so lost in the research part and the prep part that you never get to the actually talking to people part. Procrastination is very seductive. I know. I have fallen victim to it. I'm actually falling victim to it a little bit right now. I've been pitching people to come on this show, and and weirdly enough, I'm still a little uncomfortable about doing that sometimes, particularly if it's someone that I don't really know that well. And so I procrastinate about it. I make lists of people I can ask, and I go research the people to find out what they do. But I don't ever send them an email and say, hey, I have this show and I think you'd be a really cool guest. Will you come on? So I end up doing another show where I'm here talking to you by myself, which I don't mind these shows. I hope they're valuable for you. I like to think that I make them that way, but there's something about talking to other people that is fun for me and I like it. And that's what the show was originally intended to be. But guests are not going to show up on my doorstep. Guests are not most of the time going to write me and say, hey, I want to be a guest on your show. Sometimes they do. It does happen. But for the most part, it's me going out and pursuing the people that I want to see on the show and explaining to them why they should be a guest. And when I procrastinate, then I don't have guests. And, like I said, it's up to everyone themselves to decide whether or not watching solo shows with me is a good thing or not, and whether watching shows with guests is more interesting. I think they both have their benefits and their drawbacks. But if I don't pursue the guests, if I don't pitch the guests, then I don't get the guests. If you don't pursue clients, if you don't pitch clients, then you don't get sales. And it's pretty low stakes for this show because it doesn't support me. Doesn't have a sponsor. So if I don't get guests and I do solo shows, nobody dies. I'm not going to go hungry this week. There are other things that pay my mortgage and keep my pantry full and all that. This is not that. But if you're running a business and you're procrastinating on pitching people, then yeah, you may not be able to pay your mortgage this month, or you may not be able to make your equipment payments, or you may not be able to pay your employees. So you need to stop procrastinating. You need to get out there and pitch people. And how many people is enough people? That's something that everybody needs to decide for themselves. I would say if you're procrastinating about it or you're really uncomfortable about it, set a really low goal. Pitch one person a day, just one. And keep pitching one person a day. Keep going down that list you made. And as you get more yeses and get more new clients coming in, then you'll find that the procrastination will stop on its own because you realize that you can be successful at this, that it can be worth doing. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight, but it will happen. So really look at that, because I think procrastination is an easy trap to fall into just because you can also hide it behind, oh, I'm so busy. I have so much to do. I'm running this business and I have all these things to figure out and I have supplies to buy and I have all this stuff. And so somehow recruiting people as clients falls on the bottom of the list. So really look at that if that's something that you've been doing, and like I said, start with pitching one person a day. Do your one person and you're done. You don't have to do any more for that day. And gradually, as your record of success gets higher and higher, you'll start pitching more people and you'll be more comfortable with it. Sales is uncomfortable for almost everybody. I don't know anybody who's like, yay, sales, I love it. I'm sure there are people who are like that, but okay, I know a few people who are like that. But for the most part, a lot of small business owners are uncomfortable with it. But it's part of owning a small business. You need to do it. Next thing, every sale is not the only sale. And this is something that I see with people all the time. Every time they make a pitch, it's life or death. Every time they go and talk to someone, it's the only sale they're ever possibly going to make with the only client they're ever possibly going to have. And what this thinking does is it, first of all, stresses you out, and it makes you go at it too hard because you're feeling like this is make or break. If you don't get this, then life is over as you know it. Your business will fail. Your employees will go unpaid. You will go unfed, and your cat won't have any catnip, whatever it is. Every sale is just a sale in a long line of sales. There are clients everywhere you look. And today, especially with the internet and social media, there's so many more ways to connect with people. There's so many more ways to get in front of people. So there's no, and even if you're a brick and mortar and you just want to work with people in your town, unless you live in a town of 5 people, there's going to be a big enough pool of customers that if you don't get one, you can just move on to the next one. But for a lot of people, every sale is make or break. And number one, you can't live at that level of stress. If every sale is the sale that's going to break your business, then you're going to be nuts in like 6 months. And if you have that thought process that there's a finite number of people, and if somebody else gets one of these people, then that's one less person for me, then you're also wandering into territory of getting jealous and getting resentful. And those are negative emotions. Who needs them? And I bring this up a lot, and I hate this word because I feel like it's become a new age touchstone and I don't like it, but abundance. There are tons of people in the world. There are tons of people who need what you can do in the world. Granted, you have to find them and you have to let them know you're here and you have to pitch them. But that's just part of the process. But you need to remember that nothing is life or death. If you don't make a sale, it's very unlikely that anyone will die. It's very unlikely that your business will go under. It's very unlikely that someone's going to come and point at you and laugh. That's not to say it won't happen, but it's very unlikely. I mean, anything is possible. But if you put too much pressure on the sale that you're pitching, you're basically going to clench. You're going to be so focused and so needy and so worried that you can't listen. You can't react to the cues that you're getting. You may be willing to jump on any offer that's given to you because you're so concerned about making this sale. And that's where things get stupid. And you don't want to do that. You want to be relaxed. You want to be confident that the sales that are right for you are going to come. Now, that doesn't mean you can sit with your fingers in a mudra and recite affirmations and your clients are going to line up on your doorstep. No, you're still going to have to find them. You're still going to have to pitch them. But if you do your research, if you have a good pitch, if you're calm and confident in your approach and your demeanor, then the sales that are right for you will come to you. And trust me, I know this for a fact because I used to be the most clenched person on the planet Earth. I was convinced that everything was life or death. I was convinced that everything that I tried to do, if I didn't do it well, it diminished my worth somehow. that everybody was watching me to see if I screwed up or not, or if I accomplished whatever I was trying to do. In truth, nobody was watching me. Nobody cared, honestly. But I was so clenched about it all that a lot of things that should have been fun and easy and worked out for me didn't, because I kept pushing and I kept being so stressed about it all. And honestly, I think at times I cost myself opportunities that really could have been good for me, because I just couldn't relax into it. And the people that were looking at working with me were like, "Ugh, she's not going to be fun." So, and I like this comment from In Stitches. I recall when I first started and feeling I needed every sale and I would get blue when it didn't happen. Yeah. And I think a lot of new business owners feel that way, because when you're just starting out, you maybe don't have a lot of money. You might have sunk a lot of money into this new venture and you're scared it's not going to work out, and you haven't figured out who your clients are yet or what your market is yet, and maybe you haven't done your research yet. And so you're just so focused on every sale is the difference between eating this month or not. And sometimes, yeah, it is. Sometimes, yeah. But even if it is, you have to just have confidence that if you don't get this one, there'll be another one that will come along. And that's hard to do. I know. It's hard for me to do still, even though I think I'm a lot better at it than I used to be. But once I could at least tap into that mindset partially, life got so much better. Because honestly, lying in bed at night worrying that you're going to be living in a refrigerator box down by the river is not fun. Lying in bed at night and thinking, "Ah, there are so many people I can talk to tomorrow that are going to want what I have to offer." And realizing that not everybody is going to be the right client for you, which is another thing that I had to figure out. I have a consulting business and I have a fee that I charge for consulting. And there have been people that have said, "Oh, I'd really love to work with you. What's your fee? And what do you charge?" And I tell them, and I never hear from them again. And at one point, my instinct would have been to contact those people again and say, "Oh, well, what were you thinking of paying?" And then I really looked at it and I thought, okay, I have X years of experience. I've done all this stuff. I know all these things. The fee that I am asking for is commensurate with other people at my same level of experience and with my same skill level. And I feel that it's fair. So, do I really want to pursue somebody who doesn't value me as much as I value myself? Having worked for people who didn't value me before, I was like, no, I really don't want to do that. So, that's another way to think about it. If the sale doesn't go, do you really want to work with somebody who doesn't value your work as much as you do? Usually the answer is no. If they don't see the value in what you're offering, then why do you want to work with them? Why don't you go find people who do see the value? Because they are out there. Next thing, you pitch somebody. You tell them what you can do, and then crickets. Do you contact them back? Do you email them again? Do you give them a call? What do you do? A lot of people are bad at follow-up. You kind of assume that if you make a pitch to someone and they don't reply or they don't respond immediately, that you should just leave it go and move on to your next pitch person. And in some cases that's true, but I would say at least one follow-up is indicated. And that could be just, hey, I'm touching base. I made this pitch and I haven't heard from you. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. And sometimes what you get back is, "Oh, I've been really busy," or, "Oh, I had to go on a trip," or, "Oh, my mother was sick and I had to deal with some emergency stuff for her," or whatever it is. But you never know that if you don't ask. And I want to make really, really clear, by follow up, I don't mean send 59 emails. I don't want you to be like the spam people. Like there's this lady who has been emailing me for like months about some CRM program that she wants to sell to Lenny Penny or Applique Getaway or something. I don't even know. But literally like months of emails, and it's usually the same email. And the last one she sent me made me laugh so hard because it was like, well, you haven't replied, and I'm only going to email you a few more times before I decide you're not interested. And I'm like, so the 15 times you've emailed me already that I haven't responded to in any way didn't make you think that maybe I'm not interested? So there's a limit. Don't be a pest. Don't be a scammer. But do follow up. There's nothing wrong with sending a follow-up email and saying, or making a follow-up call and saying, hey, I haven't heard anything from you. I'm just wondering where we stand on this. Thank you for the opportunity to pitch. And I really like to hear what you think. And then they'll respond or they won't. Follow-ups are iffy. Some people say you should follow up at least 1 to 4 times. Some people will tell you more than that. I think 4 is a little much, honestly. But that depends somewhat on what kind of response you get. If you follow up with someone and they say, oh, gee, I have a lot on my plate. I need to think about this. Can you contact me again in 2 weeks? Then put it on your calendar and contact them in 2 weeks. If you follow up and you don't get a response at all, then that's where I'd go, I don't know. If they tell you to follow up, or if you get a response that says, hey, I'm thinking about it, or something like that, then yeah, follow up again. But if you get 0 response, if there's no sign of interest whatsoever, then do your 1 follow-up. If you get no response to that, personally, I would move on. Now, dyed-in-the-wool salespeople would probably hate me for saying that. And, I make no claims to be a salesperson. I've talked a lot and read a lot and worked with a lot of people. And I like this comment too. My follow-up has become, I am working on my production schedule. I want to make sure I reserve space in my schedule for you. I've had much better response. And that's a really nice follow-up because there's a sense of urgency to it. It's not pushy. And if somebody says, don't worry about reserving space, you can just say, okay, thanks, and move on. I like that a lot. That's a very good follow-up, I think. And again, that's something that you follow up and you're either going to get, oh, I need you to reserve space, or, oh, get back to me in 2 weeks, or you're going to get nothing. And if you get nothing, then you have your answer and you can move on. So I like that one a lot. But I think follow-up is really important. The next thing, have confidence in your offer. This is something that I have noticed women do a lot, and it's an interesting thing. And that's when somebody asks you a price, and when you say the price, you say it kind of with a lift at the end of your voice, which basically signals a question. So somebody says, what are you charging for this blank patch? And you say $20. And you can hear the lift at the end of your voice. And really what that's telling people is, I'm not sure of this price. I don't know if it's worth that. I don't know if you'll pay that. Maybe asking you to pay that. So I'm going to just kind of say it and let you know that I'm not really comfortable with it. And this tends to be more a female thing. I think some women talk like this naturally. They have a lift at the end of their sentences a lot. Something to be aware of when you're talking about price, because you don't want to sound like your price is something you're not sure of. And if you have done, circling back to what I was talking about earlier, if you have done your due diligence, if you've done your research, if you've done your math, if you know what your rock bottom price is, if you know what you're offering, if you know the value of what you're offering, and if you know what you need to make, then you can have confidence in what you're offering. And then you can just state it confidently. And then, you know what? Be quiet. You don't have to justify. You don't have to justify your price. You don't have to justify your skill level. You don't have to justify anything. You're making a pitch. They can pick it up or they cannot. That's up to them. Now, yeah, you should explain why your offer is a good one, but you don't have to. Some people get so caught up in, because they're not confident, they think they have to prove that they're worth it. So they'll tell you the entire history of everything they've ever learned. They'll tell you about every piece of equipment they've ever had. They'll tell you about every employee that works for them. They'll tell you about everything you could ever want to know. And really all they're telling you is, I'm not confident in this. I don't feel comfortable with this. So learn to just say what you need to say to do a good pitch, and then let it be. Because if you're talking all the time, if you're stating your prices tentatively, if you're doing a little lift at the end in your voice, then you're telling people that this is someone who isn't confident in what he or she is doing. And it's not only women who do this, men do this too. So have confidence. Speak with confidence. And like I said, confidence comes with preparation. Confidence comes with doing the research, doing the work, knowing what you're doing. And right along with have confidence is take yourself seriously. It doesn't matter if you have a one needle in your second bedroom or in your basement. It doesn't matter if you're working out of a she shed. It doesn't matter where you do your work. I do most of my work on the couch in yoga pants. It doesn't matter. I do good work. So it doesn't matter where it happens. It doesn't matter what I'm using to do it. It matters that I can do what I say I can do, and I'm worth what I'm charging to do it. So take yourself seriously. I could not sit here in front of you every week and talk about the things I talk about if I didn't take myself seriously. If I didn't understand that there is value in what I'm doing. There is value in what I know. There is value in the skill set that I have. And it doesn't matter whether I'm doing it out of my townhouse or if I'm doing it on the couch in yoga pants. It doesn't matter if I'm doing it in my basement or in my garage. It doesn't matter. Number one, the customers don't know that. All they mostly see is the finished work. And number two, nobody else is going to take you seriously until you take yourself seriously. That was something it took me a really long time to learn. I used to think that other people taking me seriously validated me. And I didn't realize that needing other people's approval and validation was actually leading them not to take me seriously. And I don't mean ego, and I don't mean arrogance, and I don't mean walking around like you're, the king of the hill. I mean just a quiet confidence that says, I know what I'm doing. I have the skill set. I've done my research. I'm worth your time. And that's sometimes something you have to fake. But keep in mind that, like I said, it's not arrogance. It's not overconfidence. It's not unwarranted confidence. It's just a quiet belief that you can do what you need to do. And if you want to be taken seriously, you have to take yourself seriously first. That's as simple as that. Another thing to look at real quick, because we're getting towards the end here. What do you believe about selling? Do you think selling is wrong? Do you feel like if you're selling, you're asking for money? Do you feel like people who buy things are doing you a favor? Do you think that salespeople are annoying or creepy or sleazy, or, do you think everybody is like the proverbial used car salesman? What are your beliefs about selling? And again, not to be too new agey here, but what you think about selling is going to inform how you sell. If you think that all the people who sell are sleazy, You may procrastinate about selling. You may feel uncomfortable when you do it. If you think that everybody who buys something from you is doing you a favor, then you may bend over backwards and make concessions that you wouldn't otherwise make. So take a minute to think about what you believe about selling. What do you feel is what salespeople are? What do you feel about selling? What do you think about selling? What do you say about selling? Do you spend all your time saying, oh, I hate selling. Ugh, I wish I didn't have to do it. I wish I could hire someone to do it. And sometimes you can. But ultimately, if you run a business, you're going to be the person who is going to have to sell at some point. It's just how it is. So you really need to look at what you think about selling and what you believe. And that is basically the end of this little chat here. And I do want to ask you for a few things before I go. Number one is come join us in the Women in Garment Decoration group if you're a female. And the other thing is please like the Women and Business Facebook page. I would love to have more people there. The other thing I want to ask you real quick is if you like this show, please share it on Facebook or share it on YouTube. Let other people know that this is out there. I'm very lucky and blessed that I have a lovely core of viewers who are with me a lot of the time, and they're very supportive and I love them. But I'd like more people to see these shows. So if you enjoyed what I said here today and you thought it was helpful, please share this on your page or in your group or on your profile, and hopefully some other people will see it and maybe come and join us too. And thank you, Cindy. And I have to give props to Cindy because she is here every week. She's a supporter of all of us who do these shows in this industry. And it means a lot. So I really appreciate it. And that is everything I have for you today. Next week, we'll talk about something new. In a couple of weeks, there will be guests. Ooh, how exciting. But thank you all for being here today. I appreciate it so much. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Bye, everybody.